They love doing this, not because they are evil, but because they are unconscious. What they repeat, what they project, what they obsess over, it all comes from the shadow hidden beneath the surface of their smiles. You must understand this. The patterns that hurt you are not random. They are rituals of the unhealed. People are possessed by what they refuse to face, and if you stay asleep, they will use you to avoid themselves. You must wake up, not to punish them, but to protect your soul. They love to project their wounds onto others, not because they consciously intend harm, but because they lack the awareness to see what truly haunts them. The unresolved pain within them, guilt, shame, fear, jealousy, becomes too unbearable to hold, so they cast it outward like a shadow onto anyone who mirrors something they've buried. If they feel weak, they'll call you arrogant. If they feel unlovable, they'll accuse you of being too cold. If they feel unseen, they'll claim you're the one starving for attention. What they cannot digest inside themselves, they vomit into your world and call it truth. But it's not truth, it's a disguise, a defense, a desperate act of psychological survival masked as judgment, criticism, or even passive-aggressive kindness. People often don't realize they're doing this. The mask they wear is one of righteousness. They believe they're giving feedback, offering advice, speaking facts, but behind it, if you listen carefully, is a cry, "Please don't see how hurt I am. Let me hand you the part of me I hate, so I don't have to look at it." And if you're unaware, you'll absorb it. You'll start doubting yourself, carrying emotions that don't belong to you, bending your identity to match their distorted view of the world. They don't just project randomly. They select target, soften the empathic, the self-aware, the light bearers, because the unconscious cannot stand the clarity of truth. It burns. And so, in an attempt to snuff out that fire, they'll call you fake, dramatic, selfish, delusional, anything to dim the light that reflects what they haven't faced. This is why you must become rooted in yourself. You must know what's yours and what isn't. If not, you'll become the emotional landfill for everyone who refuses to clean their inner house. Do not mistake projection for wisdom. Just because they say it with confidence or authority or charm doesn't mean it's yours to carry. Give it back silently. You do not owe your peace to those who cannot keep theirs. They love to be needed, not because they long to give, but because being needed gives them power. To the unconscious mind, control is mistaken for love, and dependency becomes the invisible thread that keeps others close. These people are often praised for their generosity, for how helpful and selfless they appear. But underneath the surface, there's a subtle manipulation at play, a hidden desire not to uplift you, but to keep you tethered. They don't help to empower, they help to bind. And the moment you start to grow beyond the version of yourself that needed saving, they feel threatened. Because your independence becomes a mirror to their own emotional emptiness. They thrive when you're broken, when you cry to them, when you lean on them, when your life is too shattered to stand on its own. They become the hero in a play they've secretly written. But if you begin to heal, to take space, to think for yourself, you disrupt the script. Suddenly they're not as warm. Suddenly their kindness feels conditional. You feel punished for evolving, because in truth your growth isn't a celebration to them. It's a loss of control. They may not even recognize this dynamic themselves. They might tell themselves they're just worried about you, or that you're changing, or that you're acting distant. But what they really mean is, you're no longer feeding my identity. They've made your weakness part of their strength. They've built a sense of purpose around your pain, and now, without it, they feel empty. This is not what real love does. Real love doesn't cling, it liberates. It holds space for your transformation, even when it means you may no longer need them in the same way. But false love fears that freedom. It tightens its grip the moment you move forward. You must understand this. Not everyone who shows up for you is doing so with pure intentions. Some are attracted to your wounds because it allows them to avoid their own. They disguise control as care and dependency as connection. But love without freedom is not love. It's captivity, and if you are not careful, you will confuse their obsession with your weakness as proof of loyalty. It is not, it is a prison built with affection, a trap disguised as help. You must learn to walk without crutches, even if the ones who gave them to you become angry when you do, because true power is found not in being needed, but in being whole. They love to shame what they secretly crave. It's a pattern rooted not in hatred, but in deep, unconscious envy, when someone sees in you the very thing they have long suppressed or failed to achieve: freedom, confidence, creativity, peace. They cannot bear the weight of their own longing. Rather than confronting the painful truth that they have abandoned their own potential, they attack yours. It's easier for them to ridicule your light than to admit they've dimmed their own. They scoff, they belittle, they label. They call your strength arrogance, your vision delusion, your depth weakness. But what they mock is not you. It's the part of themselves they've buried. The unconscious mind is clever in its self-protection. It twists desire into disdain. It turns awe into attack. Someone may long for authenticity, yet shame the one who speaks truthfully. They may dream of being courageous, yet criticize those who take bold action. They may yearn for spiritual depth, but laugh at those who live from the soul. It's not because they don't see the value, it's because seeing it reminds them of what they've forfeited. And rather than admit their own betrayal of self, they declare war on what exposes it. This is why many people become targets the moment they rise, not because they are wrong, but because they are symbolic. You represent what others have not yet become. You become a living mirror of unfulfilled potential, and that is a painful reflection for those who have spent years avoiding themselves. So they reject you, not because of what you are, but because of what you awaken in them. This is the tragedy of shame. It disguises longing as disgust, but if you look closely, you'll see the desire hidden beneath the insult. When someone judges your freedom, it's often because they feel trapped. When they criticize your truth, it's because they are silenced. When they mock your journey, it's because they have stalled their own. The lesson is this: do not take their shame personally. It is not about you. It is about the war they are losing within themselves. Your task is not to shrink to make them comfortable. Your task is to remain fully expressed, to stand in the very power they try to shame, because your courage gives others permission to find their own. And even those who attack you may one day realize what they tried to destroy in you was what they most needed in themselves. They love to repeat painful cycles, not because they enjoy suffering, but because it feels like home. The unconscious mind is not driven by what is good or healthy. It is driven by what is familiar, and for many, pain is the only language they've ever known. Chaos is comforting when peace feels foreign. So they recreate the very dynamics that once hurt them, not out of malice, but out of a deep inner programming that tells them, this is what love feels like, this is what life is supposed to be. Someone who grew up feeling abandoned will unconsciously gravitate toward people who are emotionally unavailable. Someone raised in constant criticism will seek out environments where they are judged. It is not logical, it is psychological. The pain of the past becomes the blueprint for the present. It becomes a hidden script written in childhood, and unless one becomes conscious of it, they will repeat the same story with different characters over and over, calling it fate. They will even sabotage good things. Give them kindness, and they'll doubt it. Give them peace, and they'll provoke conflict. Give them safety, and they'll find ways to escape it. Why? Because a part of them doesn't feel worthy of it. Or worse, they don't trust it. When dysfunction has become their normal, anything healthier feels like a trick, like a setup for betrayal. So they return to the pain, not because it's pleasurable, but because it's predictable. Predictability offers a strange sense of control, even if it's over suffering. You must understand this. Their chaos is not always a choice. It is a wound acting itself out. Until someone wakes up to their inner conditioning, they are not living, they are reliving. They are stuck in psychological time loops, repeating scenes that echo unresolved emotions, hoping that this time it will end differently, yet choosing the exact same roles, the same reactions, the same endings. And if you are not careful, they will pull you into the cycle with them. They will play out old dramas and expect you to act your part. They will unconsciously invite you to be the betrayer, the savior, the abandoner, the one who confirms their beliefs. Not because they truly see you as that, but because they have not yet learned to see beyond their own story. The task, then, is not to judge them, but to recognize the cycle and not participate. Awareness is your shield. You do not break generational wounds by fixing broken people. You break them by refusing to repeat the same scripts. And when you step out of the loop, you offer others a mirror of what's possible. Not all will follow. Many will resent you for changing the rhythm, but your refusal to suffer with them might be the only thing that plants the seed of awakening in their soul. Pain may feel like home to them now, but you must choose another path. Because love is not repetition, peace is not passive, and freedom is never born from the familiar. They love when you stay silent, not because they care for your peace, but because your silence keeps their illusion intact. Your voice is a threat, not because it's loud, but because it's true. It disrupts the fragile fantasy they have built around themselves, the version of them where they are always right, always the victim, always justified. When you speak up, you pierce the veil, you expose the narrative, and for those who live in denial, that is intolerable. Silence becomes the unspoken contract. You don't challenge them, and they get to keep pretending. They get to avoid self-reflection. They get to wear their mask a little longer. Your silence becomes a mirror turned away, allowing them to keep walking through life without ever seeing their own reflection. So they reward your silence. They call you mature for letting things go. They call you loyal for not making a scene. They flatter your restraint while feeding off the power it gives them. But deep down, they don't admire your silence. They depend on it. They count on the fact that you're too kind to cause disruption, that you'll choose peace over confrontation, that you'll internalize your pain instead of exposing their behavior. They rely on your emotional intelligence to excuse their emotional immaturity. And the longer you keep quiet, the more they convince themselves that they've done nothing wrong. But silence is not always wisdom. Sometimes it is fear in disguise. Sometimes it is a wound reenacting itself, a childhood memory of being punished for speaking up, ignored when expressing pain, gaslit when telling the truth. And so you learned that being quiet was safer than being honest. But the cost of that safety is your integrity, your soul. There comes a time when silence becomes betrayal, not of them, but of yourself, because each time you swallow your truth, you abandon a piece of your own spirit. You bury your voice so they can sleep peacefully in their illusion, but peace that demands your suppression is not peace, it's manipulation. You don't have to shout, you don't have to fight, but you must speak. Speak clearly, speak calmly, speak truthfully, not to convince them, not to change them, but to free yourself. Your voice is the boundary. It is the moment you step out of the role they cast you in. It is the end of their script and the beginning of your own story. And make no mistake, they may resist. They may get angry, defensive, cold. Because when you speak, you wake them from a dream they weren't ready to leave. But that is not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to honor your inner reality more than their outer appearance. Your silence was never kindness. It was the cage they disguised as peace. But now you know, and once you know, you can no longer play dead for the sake of someone else's comfort. Let them call your truth rebellion. Let them call your clarity confrontation. Let them call your awakening betrayal. But speak anyway. They love doing this, not because they are cruel, but because they are lost. But your responsibility is not to save them, it's to see them. The unconscious crave your blindness. The conscious demand your vision. Wake up, feel deeply, speak clearly, love wisely, and above all do not play dead so others can sleep well. Their comfort is not worth your soul.